bin Laden and a bunch of resistance fighters were successful in keeping away the Russians, aka the Soviet Union, from invading Afghanistan, which, by the way, bin Laden got a lot of aid from the United States to fight off the Russians during this conflict in the 80s, okay? Started in 1979, ended sometime in the 80s, right before the Soviet Union collapsed in, I think, 91. So after that, right, guess what happens? Saddam Hussein decides to invade Kuwait. And that obviously poses a national security risk for Saudi Arabia. So bin Laden, high off his victory from the Soviets, he's like, listen, we can fight these guys. I have an army. We have, right, this is the beginnings of Al-Qaeda now at this point, right, his resistance fighters. Hey, we're trained up. We just beat the Soviets. We can do this as well. But what does the Saudi royal government want to do? They say, no, we're going to go ahead and use the Americans. The Americans are going to, help us deal with Saddam Hussein and Iraq. And to bin Laden, he looked at this like betrayal because, number one, they're, in his eyes, infidels, right? It's the West. They're Americans. They're not Muslims. They shouldn't be, fighting a holy war like I should be fighting for us. This is a problem, etc. And he didn't like the United States because the United States obviously supports Israel. And we all know the Middle East hates the U.S. because of Israel, and everybody in the Middle East hates Israel for obvious reasons because of the Palestinian conflict, right? I don't want to make this a geopolitical podcast, but these are just some basic things that you guys need to know so you can understand where this deep-seated hatred comes from. So since bin Laden wasn't allowed to fight the Iraqis, aka Saddam Hussein's regime, when they invaded Kuwait, he spoke poorly about the Saudi government / royal family, and they stripped him of his Saudi Arabian citizenship, and he was exiled. So he went and hid in Sudan for a while, and Al-Qaeda operations moved there. And yes, for you guys that are wondering, yes, my parents are from North Sudan. Ha ha ha. Make your jokes. So anyway, but he's not Sudanese. At this time, back in like early 90s, Sudan was one country. Now there's North Sudan and South Sudan. Now North Sudan is the Arab North, which is where my family's from, Khartoum. And that's where Osama was in the early 90s. Right. So he got a Sudanese passport, etc. So that's where the hatred came. And that's how he ended up getting problems with the Saudi government. It was for his criticisms of the Saudi government utilizing the United States for protection against Saddam Hussein and the invasion in Kuwait. And this obviously stems from the petrodollar and the United States making an alliance with Saudi Arabia, saying that we will protect you guys from all, types of issues and or invasions or whatever, because for obvious reasons, Saudi Arabia controls the oil. And as long as the Saudi Arabian government agreed that all oil deals would be done in U.S. dollars, which guess what? The entire world's got to use U.S. dollars to buy oil. Oil is the bloodline of the world. And that right there ensures that the U.S. dollar stays in power, stays the reserve currency. And that, my friends, is how the petrodollar was created. I know that was a very rough explanation of it, but that right there is how Osama made his millions upon millions, how his family made billions, his exile from Saudi Arabia to Sudan, and why he hates the United States and how the issues started with him in the United States. It stems from support of Israel and from them taking over and protecting the Saudi Arabian kingdom from Iraq, which he feels the United States had no business on Islamic lands.